What are you doing? Filming?
My dad.
You don't have it running, do you?
Renaissance man. Humanitarian, funny guy. Johnny Carson. I've always gotten along better with my dad for some reason. We both had the same sense of humor. And yet he was always trying to get me to pull his finger. A gentle soul, very tolerant of his children. You could get away with murder around him, as long as you didn't tell Mom.
Not mine.
What'd you do?
I went to the library.
Go to the other...
Yeah, by college.
Huh?
Yeah, by college one.
Yeah.
Did you have a good nap?
Up to now.
It's raining out, you know.
I know.
Or it was.
I know.
In the spring of 2000, I was living in a house in Portland, and I was asked to move out. I was kind of freaking out, and about 3 hours later, I got the phone call from my mother, asking me to move back home for a year, because they were trying to sell their house, and they needed some help in cleaning it up and getting it ready to move, and they needed help moving. And because I was the youngest of 4 kids, and I was the only one not, married and tied down, I was the chosen one to do this, and I did it, and I wanted to film them. I wanted to film my parents, sort of in order to deal with them. And I can get some distance and look at my situation and my childhood kind of objectively. It was sort of therapy for me, and as you can see by the looks of me, I sort of needed it.
Sat under a tree. Nat and I sat under a tree while he told me all his interests, and I was very impressed. And then afterwards, we went to the Arboretum.
Well, my parents were married for over 50 years. It wasn't really the most blissful of marriages. And both had had affairs, and my father never really forgave my mother for her affair, and kind of walked around kind of dog-eared for years about it, not really getting love from her. And it was kind of awkward towards the end. He had met a woman, and my mother encouraged him to go off with her, to be her boyfriend.
And we were married the following August. No, Dave. Go watch yourself.
Thank you. Pump it on the screen.
Drives me crazy with that.
But there was one time she did want to be interviewed on camera, and she proceeded to tell me that she had been molested when she was 3, she was molested when she was 8, she was molested again when she was 11, and she was always being physically abused by her parents. Her mother was kind of two-faced to her, and her stepfather would hit her upside the head at every meal. She couldn't get through a meal without crying. And after having the responsibility of raising her siblings, and then raising a family, and having a job that she worked at very hard, she had had a nervous breakdown shortly before giving birth to me. She was taken out in a straitjacket and put in a hospital and given lots of medication and shock treatments. So by the time she was my mother, she was kind of a shell of her former self. The stelazine she was on for the rest of her life kind of kept her at sort of a zombie level. She never really got really happy or really mad or really sad, just kind of flatlining for the rest of her life. But she had such a strong constitution. Her body, as it got older, became very wiry, and she became like a machine. For nearly my entire life, she would be sitting at that kitchen table, smoking a cigarette, running in place, Your back wiggling and jerking, your toes moving. Like a superhero. Let's watch her in action now, shall we? Wow. Riveting. The two main elements I remember growing up were the smoking and the alcohol. My mother had smoked since the age of 15. She had developed emphysema in her 70s. My father was smoking cigars, pipes, which they probably ordered him to do in the army or something. I don't know. Which though it smelled a little bit better, it still was nasty. In the 80s, my dad got up to about 5 martinis a day before he admitted he had a problem and went into Alcoholics Anonymous, which he stayed with for a while and then kind of fell off the wagon again a few times.
Now it starts.
So this one time I was really moved to call my parents up on the phone. But this time it was different. I really wanted to tell them. I was moved by the Spirit to tell them how much I love them and to tell them thank you for all the things they've done for me and that I'll be okay. You don't have to worry about me. And it was funny. I would say 2 or 3 weeks later, I got the phone call from my sister saying that my father had had a heart attack and was in the hospital. He actually died in a helicopter en route to Phoenix, Arizona to have triple bypass surgery in August of 2002. Just about a year after my father passed away, my mother died. And that was it. And that's the one thing in life that's inevitable, is that your parents will pass away. And then one day you will pass away. Death is a funny thing, and I know one day it's going to be knocking on my door.
Should I be? Apologies. What else should I say? Everyone is gay. What else could I write?